To control our scene, we need to add a camera. We add the camera by clicking on the plus and we choose camera. The camera is a null object. The camera will always be at the bottom. You only get one camera per scene. So we can't do a multicam shoot. If you start thinking in terms of, oh, I want multiple cameras, then I'll get different angles. It doesn't work that way. You get one camera and we can animate this camera through the scene. But we animate the camera not with the camera layer itself, but we do it by using a control peg. If I click the plus and do that, if I click on the plus, we'll see that I can choose peg. It's Command P. While the camera layer is highlighted, I can also click this icon right here, which is add peg, and that adds a peg for the camera layer. Now with the camera layer set there, I am going to see how camera is indented from now the peg layer, which is camera-P. By default, it will name the peg layer with a -P, so you know, looking at the name, that that is a peg layer. It also has an icon that has the kind of motion tweening icon on it that we can see here. So it has that little icon on the corner. But I'm going to collapse this onto it so we just see the peg layer only. Click in first frame of the peg layer. I hit the function key F6. That adds in a keyframe. Now if I go to a different point in time, say I'll go over to frame 30, if I want to change my view of my camera, the easiest way to do that is to use some of the animation tools that I can see across the top of my screen here. The move or translate tool is the easiest one to use. So if I wanted to pan across my scene, I can now slide over on my scene. So now I'm focusing on the parrot, but it would actually make more sense to focus on the pirate since he's going to be the one talking. So I will pull him center frame. And now if I scrub my animation, we can see that both layers are moving because I've animated my camera. I'm also going to look down at the bottom here. And when I zoom in, I'll see that I have this line indicating that this is now a tweened animation. Between these two keyframes, we can see that. And we'll look at using both tweened as well as stop motion keyframes as we work our way through this. Now if I want to zoom in a little bit on the pirate here, what I can do is move to a new point in time. And now if I change my view, so I look at the top view, we'll see that I have a view here where it shows me this yellow cone represents the field of vision of my camera. And if I drag around in here, we'll see how I'm able to change the view. So I can pull out or push in. So if I want to push in on the pirate, I can now just push this in. And you will see when I cross this white line represents my field of view that the camera is now picking up. So we can see if I'm zoomed way in on my character, this black line shows how wide he is, and we can see how he's extending beyond the frame. So this is, again, I'm using the top view, so it's as if I'm looking down on my character. Now if I zoom out, we'll see how I was able to create that movement. If I add in another movement where I'm going to shift over to the parrot, but perhaps this time trying to get the parrot mostly centered on screen so we can see how it slides over. But if I click on this keyframe, we have two options. It can be a motion keyframe or a stop motion keyframe. Stop motion means it doesn't animate it, it just transitions from one spot to the next, much like a cut. So we will see that when I get to that next frame, it cut to that view. So the pirate's still talking, now cut. So if when you are storyboarding your project and decide that you are planning to do cut to one character, cut back to the other character, cut to one character, cut back to the other, instead of zooming the camera in and out, panning it side to side. If you want to do cuts, then to do that, we end up using the stop motion keyframe instead of a motion keyframe or a tweened keyframe. If I take the parrot with the parrot selected, I can add a peg to it. I can now take and add the parrot's, oh, one too far. So now I have the head and the mouth are now controlled by the same peg. So if I take this parrot peg, I can now keyframe the parrot. So we'll see how the parrot is moving while the camera is moving as well. I could add a peg to the mouth and add a peg to the head and then move each one. I can also add one master peg for all of the body parts. We're going to do more complex characters where each part animating gets a peg and then there's a control peg for the entire character so that we can control it. We will be doing that in subsequent lessons. But right now, if you just have one peg for your character, you can move it within the field of view of the camera without having to move your camera. But the point on this particular assignment and scripts, there's not a lot of character movement going on. So the storytelling should be happening through the camera movement and the camera cuts, along with the characters who are now talking in their dysfunctional manner to each other.